But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Coming to you live from deep within an icy radioactive wasteland. Actually, it's sort of muddy and windy and leafy at the moment. We are the lone survivors, the alt-right apocalypse. We are the brave, the bold, the bitchy, once more wading into battle against the lobster, froggy, zombie, koofy hordes. With the ultimate... Jeez, I managed to screw up on the second word. That must be a record. Okay. The ultimate Morton's Spork with Teal Deer. Choose your cringe. ! Rantzerker 126.
Or if I had enough room for characters, I was going to call it Choose Your Own Displeasure. Because
Choose your own display. Okay. But YouTube limited you, huh?
Yeah, those bastards. Damn you, Susan Wojcicki!
Okay, so just so you guys know, we have 2 selections today. And in honor of the beginning of our monthly fundraiser to make sure that Brian can do his producerifying, Hannah can do her talkifying, and Prim can do her mental healthifying. Go to feedthebadger.com/project/badger-media-blitz. The link is in the low bar as well. And you can find that. Throw a few shekels in the hat. I will be announcing that as well if this laptop doesn't kill me, because my actual laptop died this Sunday. But anyway, so the difference this time around is that we are going to pose this to Super Chat. Which would you prefer us to cover? Brian, I'm going to need your help with the titles as usual.
Yeah. I can read them out for you guys.
Yes, so, please read out the 2 selections.
Yeah, we have 2 most rigorous academic studies that only, Ivy League universities in our Western academic institutions could possibly have produced. One is Situating Cyberzone, Black Lesbian Identity in Comics. These are very important topics. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. I see you smirking. And the other is probably even more important. If not a fist, then what about a stump? This is about ableism and heteronormativity within Australia's porn regulations. Stop it! That's not funny. This is serious stuff. Lives. Yes, okay. Lives are on the line, and only our academic institutions can save us.
I just started reading the stump one. When you said stump in the email inviting me,
you thought tree stumps?
Yes. I have just discovered that it's not tree stumps. This is amputation stumps.
Yes. And by the way, guys, I didn't go through this at the beginning, but we have a special guest, Teal Deer, on once again. Come back to the Rantzerker to discuss this. I'm sure he's very grateful at the moment that he's here discussing this particular subject. But yes, it is a stump, not a tree stump, but
The abstract contains the term stump fucking, and the key words are fisting, as in fist, yes, but also stumping.
Yeah.
Stumping is a key word.
Yes.
Stumping.
Oh, God.
Okay, so put your super chats in and vote which poison you would like us to go through this episode, and I guess we'll just has anybody put anything through?
Wait, I wanna we're not yet.
Okay, first one will probably be it.
So I just want to just to give a little bit of background, or maybe add a little bit to fuel to the fire for this Situating Cyberzone story. This is there was actually a comic book in the 90s called Cyberzone, and that's what it looked like. And this is about Black Lesbian Identity. So, I mean, they're both pretty good choices. I'm just saying they look like they're going to be rigorous and robust either way. We did get one super chat just now from Master Rogue. He gives us $5 and says, Prim's mental healthifying, I'd buy that for $1. So he doesn't actually chime in with an opinion on the two stories.
Geez. Okay, well, that's great. Well, we'll see what happens then. See if anybody actually votes. If not, I think we'll go for maybe the stump one. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to read the abstracts for both of these? That might
sure, yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the abstract for Cyberzone first. Abstract. Cyberzone is a fitting place to start any discussion around Black lesbian identity in comics, as it is the first comic book that this researcher could find which features a Black lesbian female lead superheroine. Cyberzone was self-published by Jimmy Robinson in 1994 and later revamped into a mini-comic series called Amanda and Gunn with Image Comics. First, this article deconstructs Cyberzone through the lens of cultural prism theory. I don't know what that is. Second, this article, I think I could guess what cultural prism theory is. It sounds like another way of saying intersectional feminism, but second, this article situates Cyberzone within the framework of cultural prism theory to address Cyberzone's place within the comic book ecosystem. Finally, this essay offers a close reading of Cyberzone issues 1 through 4 against the backdrop of the intersectional framework Black Queer Identity Matrix. Take the red pill. During this process, the researcher demonstrates how Cyberzone is a powerful site of resistant cultural commentary. So, yeah, that
dun dun dun.
All that from this. And then we have
I'd like to point something out interestingly here.
Yeah.
Cultural prism theory does not appear to be a thing.
No?
Because I've just searched it, I've just looked for it. If you just search cultural prism theory in general, the first thing that you actually get back is FedEx. Yeah. And then something regarding brand identity theory. Basically just a bunch of unrelated stuff. If you actually quote mark search it, the first thing you get back is this paper. And the second thing you get back is the journal that this paper is published in and the journal page for this paper. In other words, cultural prism theory seems like it's not even a thing. It's one of these things that these academics do where they coin a term just so they can be the person that coined the term, and then they hope that other people pick it up, and then it gets cited back to them, and then it makes their portfolio of work look really, really impressive. So They're just kind of saying that, oh, this is a thing. It's like, I can't find any reference to it in anything credible. It sounds like something you've made up.
It's like they're trying to make it a thing, like Fetch from Mean Girls. They're trying to make
it a
thing.
Memes. Forced memes. They're like forced memes.
Forced memes, exactly.
Academic forced memes, okay.
And I'm fairly certain then, and I don't know if the article even goes into what cultural prism theory is. Maybe if we do this when we can find out. But I'm fairly certain it sounds to me like it's just another way of saying intersectionality. But that's what I think.
Yeah, there is literally nothing about it on Google Scholar either.
Of course not.
It's the same paper. And keep in mind, Google Scholar is basically every single journal aggregated in this site. It's the only thing that it's pulling up is this paper. Like, cultural prism theory is something this author fabricated for this paper. It is not a thing.
Yeah, of course not. So there you go, guys. That's situating Cyberzone, Black Lesbian Identity. And now we got, if not a fist, then what about a stump? Ableism and heteronormativity within Australia's porn regulations. Abstract. How are you abstracting this? In this article, I am motivated by a question. Is stumping or stump fucking permitted in Australian porn? Stumping refers to the insertion of a person's leg or arm stump into another person's rectum or vagina. It is a question that has not been answered due to a variety of reasons, yet is an important question It's very important because it reveals a lot about the ways in which I guess that means crippled, not like the gang from California, crip and queer bodies are constituted and regulated in historical and contemporary social contexts. In tackling this question, I interrogate Australia's vague classification laws, the prohibition of related activities, fisting most notably, and the ubiquity of ableism and heteronormativity in society. I engage in a series of questions, speculations, and arguments that are based on a complex assemblage of practices, bodies, and relations. Assemblage of practices, bodies, and relations, and in so doing, I seek to disrupt the normative circumstances that abject the practices of stumping and fisting and foreclose new forms of pleasures, cultures, and ethics. This is why academia is shit, by the way. But those are our options. So do you guys have any thoughts?
That was far more.
I have no. I'm just still boggled at the fact that she's trying to force an academic meme, and that's allowed. It's just like, yeah, you can just completely. Is it actually cited anywhere in there that I just made this term up?
Oh no, they're not going to do that. They probably won't anyway. It's just standard fare for feminists these days. They just, I declare that I'm going to be using this thing, and then that's it. Like, that's where they go. I'm trying to think of a time where that happened. I remember there was one, but I can't remember what the paper was or what the.
So you're saying that. So you're saying that you're stumped on that.
A little bit, yes. And someone cited this paper to me for something, and within the paper it was like, oh, I propose using this theory to examine something, and it was like, yeah, again, this theory isn't a thing that you're using. You've just proposed a method. I think it was to do with bigotry and humor or something like that, do sexist, racist jokes, make people sexist and racist, and they were like, their own data said no. Their own data, when they tried to examine it, was like, no, that there is no proof of this whatsoever. But then they were just like, I propose a theory to explain how this happens. It's like, but your own data suggests that it doesn't. But you're just proposing a theory to explain how that does happen. Sure, okay, you're not a fucking hack at all, are you?
So I did get a couple of super chats that voted. So Roll for Initiative gave us $2 and said, "Stump me, baby." And the Great Indoors gave us €5 and said, "Rub my stump, HBR. Do it. Harder, faster, honey badgers. Kill, kill, kill." So I think we got 2 votes for stumps. We got two votes for stumps. Do we want to do that, Alison, or do you want to wait for more back?
I think we'll go for stumps. We'll do the other one in the after show.
All right. That's how I set it up too. So we're going to talk about both of these stories. We'll just do one in the patron show and one in the main show. So here we go. Oh, Chantal X said for $2, 1 vote for FedEx.
Yep. It's higher on the list than cultural prism theory. We should examine FedEx. Let's do it.
Let's do some FedEx studies. All right.
It's far more meaningful for society.
Absolutely.
It's actually achieved something.
Okay, so if not a fist, then what about a stump? Ableism and heteronormativity with Australia's porn regulations. I can probably skip the abstract. You guys have the links to this, right?
Yes, it is open.
Okay, so I guess I could just read the intro. This article addresses a number of normatively confronting issues: stumping, ableism, and pornography. My use of confronting refers both to the nature of the topic as well as the argument that unfolds. I am motivated by a question: is stumping or stump fucking permitted in Australian porn? I just want to know what brought that question about. Is this what intellectuals do? Is that what academics do? What's a question no one's ever asked before? I know. Stumping refers.
I mean, given that it's in Australian pornography, I mean, we've already got, sodomy with didgeridoos. It was very controversial because, of course, it was cultural appropriation because it was two white guys doing it.
Of course.
I was very concerned when I found out in that piece of media that the didgeridoo was snapped in half and then used. My concern, of course, was which end was being used in that act of sodomy. But seeing as that is a thing that has happened, I would imagine that stump fucking is probably a step down on the list from that when it comes to outrage, and probably acceptable. I would also like to point out that the didgeridoo was used in a piece called Didgeridoo Me. That was the title. It's very good good pun there, nice little play on words. And it featured the immortal line, "I'm gonna didgeridoo you in the arse," which fantastic. I mean, they used the same pun twice, but I mean, how many other didgeridoo puns can you get in there, really?
How many didgeridoos can you get in?
That doesn't actually sound fake.
As far as I was aware, it was only one, or one end of the same one. I don't know whether they used the other end for anything, because I didn't watch the whole thing. I got about halfway through and then was overcome with this strange malaise where I no longer wanted to live in this plane of reality anymore.
That's cause for exterminatus.
Was this an academic examination? Or just
No, that one wasn't academically examined, unfortunately. It was just a news story that went around because, of course, the social justice and feminist minded got very upset that white guys were using a didgeridoo because of the act of cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
There's nothing else about it was concerned.
Was it all offensive? No.
It was. It was just white guys and didgeridoos, like, in the same room.
God forbid.
In the same space. Intersecting the same space.
Have they ever complained about white people playing didgeridoo?
Of course.
Well, that was, I would imagine, part of the complaint, because in the setup for this, the plot element, which is of course why I have to watch these things, was one of the men was playing the didgeridoo and playing it badly, which resulted in this other gentleman entering the room, breaking his didgeridoo, fracturing it in twain, and then sodomizing him with it. Which is, of course, the appropriate thing to do if someone is playing a musical instrument badly.
Everyone's a critic.
Oh, like, really, is this really the pertinent thing to ask about all of this? Is the cultural appropriation of the didgeridoo? Like,
apparently so. That was the most pressing thing in that particular feature film.
And then the other question that I have here, is in relation to the piece. It looks like we're going to be looking at the stump fucking, because that's the one that we haven't received any other super chats. I don't feel like belaboring the point, so looks like stump fucking it is.
Yep, we are doing that.
Yeah,
we are doing this. By the way, recommendation to those guys that use the didgeridoo: if you want to avoid cultural appropriation, you might have to instead.
That's what I'm thinking.
You should go get one of those, those Ricola horns that are really long, because that's like a white thing, right? So, you know what I'm talking about? I think they're like Swedish, the big long horns that you blow for those commercials. Ricola. Anyway, you should use those.
I know what you're talking about. I just don't know what they are.
I don't know what they're called. But I'm sure if you figure it out, you can come up with a sexual pun, and everything will be fine, and all will be right with the world. You guys can go ahead and...
Alphorn, apparently. Alpenhorn.
An alpine horn?
Alpine horn, yeah.
Alpine horn, okay.
Al
Yeah, that's the
porn.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, back to the introduction. Now that I've learned something today about the didgeridoo, so thank you, Teal. Stumping refers to the insertion of a person's leg or arm stump into another person's rectum or vagina. Dean 2014 is actually like references so that you guys know that these are actually cited studies. It is
no, that's not actually a citation.
Oh.
It's just a note.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Oh yeah, so
Oh,
it's just the note.
sorry.
I want to go back up, but I want to see because there was a name. So that it's weird because it's like there's a note and a citation for it.
There is a citation.
must
Little
know.
one. I must know. It is a question that has.
Oh, Mike. The citation is stumped in porn archives.
Okay. So
that to me just sounds like it's a porn film in an archive.
Yeah. It's that's why I didn't click on any links because I'm afraid of where they'll go. And
fortunately, I have no such fear. So, oh god, it's actually Pornhub videos.
Brian is very carefully not touching anything in this paper. No links.
Hell no.
Nothing.
All right.
Not searching any of the citations.
I'll keep going. I'm not surprised it went to porn because that's what I thought. But I was afraid it would go to some like dark porn website I've never heard of where all of the really freaky shit happens, like stump fucking, for example. It is a question that has not been answered due to a variety of reasons, you think? Yet it is an important question because it reveals a lot about the ways in which crip and queer bodies are constituted and regulated in historical and contemporary social contexts. I flag at the outset that I do not definitively know the answer to the question I am asking, and this is due to a variety of reasons centered around Australia's vague classification laws, as well as the prohibition of related activities, fisting most notably. It's called feasting! You eat the poo-poo! Nevertheless, I persist in exploring this question because our ability to not know the answer rests within a heteronormative and ableist logic that forecloses the legal possibility of its practice and potential viewing. Thus, I engage in a series of questions, speculations, and arguments that are based on a complex assemblage of practices, bodies, and relations, and in so doing, I seek to disrupt the normative circumstances that abject the practices of stumping and foreclose new forms of pleasures, cultures, and ethics. This article is divided into different sections, so if you guys want to say something, just start talking and I'll shut up. It's divided into different sections.
I'm making an argument. Like she could just say, I'm going to make an argument.
Yeah, you could just make the argument, but
no,
do useful things like literature reviews,
literally anything else.
Yeah, it's like I'm engaging a series of questions, speculations, and arguments. It's like, well, I'm glad to see that research isn't anywhere in that list. Doing things like going through Australia's pornography manufacturing industry, going through the production houses that do it, and see if they have any interest in it, and see how many films of this nature they've produced, or anything like. You don't bother doing any of that. Nothing objective shall be done in this paper, I guarantee it.
No, of course not. No. The fact that they put speculation in there as one of the ways that this person is going to discuss this topic tells you that it's probably going to be mostly speculation. And it's like they're out. So
yeah, it's this paper, it's not even a paper, it's not even research. This is just a bunch of stool. That's all it is. It's just someone who's like, shit, I need to write something.
I wonder if it's a troll, because it's so absurd, but I could see how someone could make a convincing, I mean, it's been done. I could see them making a paper like this and like getting a pass, not just a passing grade, but probably a high grade. I could see it. This is why
they've got all the right buzzwords in there.
Yeah, exactly. Like they know how to game the system. So, oof.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, that's all you need is a bunch of buzzwords. See, when I use like really elaborate words, people just they don't even they don't even want to listen. But apparently, that's all you need to do to be smart in academia.
Profound bullshit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
profound. Maybe I should just like not even try. Just get a thesaurus and just string a whole bunch of words together without even trying to make them like some sort of underlying theory or point.
They don't even have to be a sentence, Alison.
There's something in me that stops me from doing that.
No, I mean it's called integrity. It's yeah.
Is that what it is? Can I cut it out? Or maybe
No.
maybe I have a job in academia. All right.
All right.
Okay.
So I'll move on. Okay.
Hang on. Oh God. Oh Jesus. Okay. Okay. This is. Yeah. I do a lot of stuff on this side of the screen while other people are talking that you probably don't want to know about. But I just decided, fuck it, I'm gonna look up the author of this paper, because I always love looking up the authors of this paper.
Mhm.
They've written a lot of papers about disabilities. You know, they're talking about like disabilities and how it's invisible and reconceptualizing vulnerability of disability. And one of their papers, walking to the train station with a mole.
With a
And
what?
a mole, who is a person. Apparently, a mole is part of this Ryan Thornycroft, who is the writer of this paper. A mole is part of this guy's doctoral research.
Doctoral.
And yes, yep, because this guy has a doctorate.
He
somehow.
has a doctorate. Okay, so this
Yep.
is not a random.
And his he writes in the abstract here, her disabled body and my queer body. So apparently he considers himself to be queer, and people will know this just by looking at him. Were stared at intensely as we walked, and this encounter forced me to reflect on the ethics and politics of disability and invisibility. So this guy literally, with some disabled girl with him, walked down the street to a train station and thought, you know, someone looked at me. That's a fucking academic paper right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait. Utilizing crip and queer theory. Apparently being crippled is a theory now. Oh, how do these people... I'm not even going to ask that. I know how these people pass these things. They put in all the right buzzwords, and then all the people are like, oh, I recognize that buzzword. Yes, it must be very important and profound and intelligent, the thing that you've written. I don't fully understand it, but my God, it sounds good when I read it, and I recognize all of these words that you're using. Have a passing grade. But...
Yep.
I put a lot of effort into my thesis. Like a
Yeah.
lot. I did.
Yeah, so did I.
I did a lot of literature review, a lot of reading papers, a lot of putting together of little bits of information into a larger conceptual framework.
Yeah.
And I feel now that it sort of cheapens it, doesn't it? You just
Yeah. It's like I look back and I'm just like, oh, okay, so I did things about like how play develops as children's brains mature, and the methods by which we do that, and how basically through the games that children play you can effectively track their mental development, like what's going on in the brain. And it's like, oh, so you know, you have to go and look at brain studies and brain scans and then tie them into what faculties are being used in the brain when you do it. No, I could have just walked to a train station or just walked anywhere, looked at some kids and gone, yep, that'll do. It didn't even need to bother with the review of that. Didn't need to bother, you know, reading any brain scan information. Didn't need to bother learning all of that. Could have just Could have just. I didn't even have to do the looking. Like, a child could have looked at me and I could have just gone, fuck it, that'll do.
That'll do. Looked
Yeah.
at by child. Citation.
This is
Funny looking ginger boy stared at me for 2 minutes.
the absolute state of academia,
I
particularly.
know.
And I'm not even sure. Like, I want to say, because I've talked about this a lot. I want to say this would be in only limited to the humanities, or only stuff you'd find in gender studies courses. Sometimes I wonder if there aren't theses in like STEM fields that have this kind of rhetoric in them.
Yes.
That allow them to basically be elevated to, the status of peer-reviewed, published in scientific paper, because the people who decide what gets published are the people who think like this, and so they want to see more stuff like this. It's like science used to be based on evidence and repetition, and these days it almost feels like it's just based on consensus. Do we, all of us who think the same way and have the same beliefs, agree that this thing is true? Yes, we do. Well, it's now true. It's like, it's culty thinking. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make this so serious, but it bothers me because this person has a doctorate. That means, does that not mean we have to call them doctor whatever their name is, or no? I forget.
Technically,
that's the PhD.
technically,
yes.
yes.
Technically, yes.
Stump fucker.
So it basically means
Just
Dr. Stump fucker. Dr. Nub. But
oh god, the person who wrote this is a lecturer in criminology at Sydney University.
Does he have a fetish for disabled people?
This is what I'm saying.
This is where I'm
so worthless now. They're so worthless
this
now.
is where my mind is going. Like
the thing is, he's only done 3 things about crime, and they're all related to disability. Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, disability and crime, yeah, there could be some very interesting stuff there. But just looking through what this person has written, they all sound fucking retarded.
They do. So yeah, guys, if you hear an academic that's making a dumbass argument, and they think that the reason why they're qualified to make that argument is because they're doctors, they have doctorates, just remember this paper. Remember this paper.
It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything anymore. It really doesn't. So
it's just sad because some people actually put work into their masters and doctorates. Like I said, I put years of work into that damn thesis that I did. Years of work into phenomenology and haptics, and I'm basically in the same. And I was even in like I guess you could. I guess it's not really sociology. It was environmental design. So I don't know. I don't know if design is considered it's not considered a science, so it's not really STEM, but
well, it's technology.
Yeah, it's technology.
Like haptic feedback, wasn't it? That would be technology.
Well, what I looked into is specifically the tactile aspects of haptic.
Yeah.
So I was looking at the salience of surface bumps,
Yeah.
and how
I would call that technology.
Yeah. So basically it was how to create a meaning, a real meaning, like so if you look at like the current Apple thing that they use for their TV, you'll notice that there is absolutely no haptic or no tactile feedback to what is the top and what is the bottom. That's actually really terrible design, because when you have a remote, you should be able to tell which side is up and which side is down just by the feel of the texture on your skin. And most remotes actually do give you a bit of an indication, but for whatever reason, Apple, at least with the Apple product that I have, decided that it wanted to forgo any kind of sense of haptic design or tactile design in its designing. it's a sore spot for me, but that's something that I would notice in particular, because there's certain information you need to convey tactily, so that people don't. It's more of an instantaneous channel of information, and it assists in receiving information quicker, and more passively too. So I I don't know if I'm conveying any information at the moment, but anyway, I took
and
years and years of research into haptics and tactile information and the salience of bumps and skin sensors, the various types of skin sensors and the types of stimulus that they respond to, and now I look at this stuff and I'm like, wow.
Only
you
if
see
only
that?
you figured out a way, Allison, to make that, in it, like your all of the work that you've done. If there was only a way for you to make it intersect with, you know, our heteronormativity and the prism of whatever the fuck that other thing was, then you can, if you only came up with your own term that represents basically something about oppression and society and
Well, you
well,
actually could
patriarchy.
very easily.
You absolutely could have, but I mean, if you
Oh
had,
no, the term would just be ableism, because it would be like people who are blind rely heavily on tactile feedback. It's one of the reasons it exists.
yeah.
It's why do buttons on remote controls, why do some of them have a little knob? Well, it's so you know that that's the middle one, and then you can work out like what the numbers are around. It's why number 5, because that's the middle out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 through 9, and 0 in the middle at the bottom. That's so you know when you've got your finger or thumb in the middle.
Yeah.
Like so it's like if the Apple remote is the same on either side, someone who is blind is going to struggle operating that. So you could absolutely tie tactile feedback into something about ableism if you wanted to, although you'd be implying oppression of the disabled, and it's like, well, it's not really oppression, but
No,
sometimes it's just people don't think about things when they're designing it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I found some interesting things, like there's not a lot of communication between the people who are trying to design things for the disabled or blind, and the people who are researching the phenomenology of tactility. So so I was going through the literature review and realizing that people are rediscovering the wheel. But I mean, this is neither here nor there. All it means is that I put a lot of work into it, and I probably could have just slapped together something about how blind people are oppressed, um and then be done with it, or not even that. Like, that would actually require me to perhaps interview some blind people, or people who have or have vision impaired, I think is what they prefer. And I could probably have just tactility oppresses women. That would probably have been the thing that I should have done if I wanted to do something meaningless with no added value to the human race. But be that as it may, we have more stump fucking to get through.
I tried to derail it so we could actually talk about interesting stuff. Why are you dragging us back to this hellhole?
Perhaps there is something to take away from this. Perhaps we will be enlightened. Perhaps.
I can talk endlessly on the topic of my thesis, but that's not.
That's not why we're here. We're here for stumps.
We're here.
This is what the people pay for.
People are not here to listen to me spurg out on the topic of tactility and haptics. They're here to listen to us talk about stump fucking.
Right.
One of these things sounds a lot more academic than the other, and it's so sad that in the current year it's the opposite of what you'd think.
Yeah, it's an academic career, and I don't. Okay.
This is something that only an academic could make a career out of. All right, so I'll read the super chats and then I'll continue on the thing, because we did get a couple more. Roll for Initiative is $5 and says, "This is going to break my browser history. I'm going to get Amazon ads for prosthetics and lube now." Yeah, I fucking hate that shit, right? Dave in Deutschland gives us €2 and says, "Random word generator plus printer equals thesis." Or, there's that thing, I think, is it called the postmodern The postmodern phrase generator.
Generator.
Yeah, the postmodern generator.
Yeah,
that
it generates papers based on random, not like sort of pseudo random word things. Like it's got sort of memorized phrases and just chucks them all together.
Yeah.
And the thing
Profound
is,
bullshit.
yeah, and the thing is, the papers from the postmodern generator are so good that they were cited, by Pluckrose, Boss Hog, I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah.
The people that did the grievance study stuff,
Yes.
they cited papers from the postmodern generator. And obviously the academics who were reviewing their papers, they're supposed to give at least a cursory glance of the papers that you've cited to make sure you haven't cited something that's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
And they were specifically told on some of their papers, because I remember this because I think it was one of the ones that we looked at, they were actually told that their citations were excellent.
Yeah, it was the rape culture in dog parks one.
Yeah,
It's actually the
and
one.
they had papers cited from the postmodern generator and no one caught it.
Yeah.
But they were actually commended for those fake papers being cited for that fake paper. That's just mind-boggling. And there are still people to this day who will look at the grievance studies affair and point out they only got about 60 to 70% of their papers accepted. Only that accepted. The fact that some were caught and rejected is proof. The fact that a minority of them was caught is proof that there is no problem with academia and that it's working perfectly.
It's working as planned, yes.
Yeah, well, can't you expect a certain amount of your papers to be rejected just for whatever reason?
Actually, considering the ones that were accepted, I cannot understand how some were rejected at all. Unless it was like, actually the paper, and they they didn't want to read that one, written by a straight white male. In defense of straight white males, I'm going to title this paper Actually. That's probably the one that would have gotten rejected, but anyway. So Chantal,
back to the stump.
oh yeah, I'm still doing the super chats. Master Rogue, yeah, the stumper chats. Master Rogue gives us $5 and says there are some things so stupid only academics can believe them. Yeah, I think that's a saying. I think that Thomas Sowell has said that there's stuff that's so wrong that only an academic would agree with it.
Oh, can I address something from the chat? Barry Bluebird, I just looked at it, says to us, are you and Teal Deer furries?
No, we're not. No,
just mascots.
Teal Deer is a pun, and that should be self-evident.
Yes,
and Alison and I, it's like there's a long story behind it, but we're not furries. It's just like when I originally started doing YouTube with Honey Badger Radio, my Google, I think it was like because we were doing Google Hangouts, and my what do you call that? My icon, my thumb was the Doge meme, because I love the Doge meme. I thought it was really funny at the time. I think it's kind of old now, and so people just associated me with the Shiba Inu from the Doge meme, and it just over and over, and people were making drawings of it and fan art and everything. So I just became associated with it. And Alison is a badger because that's the name of the channel. But it's not
because honey badgers don't give a fuck.
Because honey badgers don't give a fuck, exactly. So no, we're not furries.
I tend to give more fucks than that. It's maybe false advertising.
Well, don't give a fuck about what other people.
Giving a fuck?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that you're a nihilist. It means that you don't give a fuck about what obstacles may be in the way as you're like trying to do what you got to do. Just like the badger, when he wants to get that honey, he doesn't care if he gets stung 50 million times because he doesn't give a fuck. Right?
Get that honey badger.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Let's I think we're getting derailed. So let's get those.
I got one more super chat. I'm sorry. I just came through. So Tyler Preston gives us $5 and says, this is a nice parody. You guys managed to make it look like so wait. I don't know.
He's being interrupted. You make it look so wait.
Oh yeah. This is a real article that a person wrote completely serious, drinks bleach. Yes. That's right. This isn't just a real article by a random person. This is a real academic paper written by someone with a doctorate that has written several other papers Many of which are probably
who
worse
is a
than this.
lecturer in criminology at a university.
Yes. Not a random person. Okay? So, back to the... Yes.
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing. So the article is, or the paper, the academic paper, the peer-reviewed academic paper, stamped with the stamp of legitimacy of academic worth. All right, this thing. It asks a question. Couldn't he have just consulted the Australian Penal Code and found out if stump fucking is legal?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
of course he could have.
Just read the laws defining what pornography is allowed to be produced in your country.
So the answer is...
if you find no specific reference to it, well, then maybe you've got something interesting to talk about. But the fact that the paper doesn't open with that literature review of what the fucking law is, when your opening abstract introductory paragraphs are stumping is in a legal gray area. Like, when you open with that, you need to go and consult what the law is. The fact that this person seems to have not done that is a fundamental failure.
Yes, I think that failure figures big in all of this, but still supported by the system.
Yep.
The system seems to like to support a lot of failure. Might be a problem going forward, but
maybe.
Let us continue. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, let us continue. Before unpacking the practices of stumping and its related activity, fisting, I introduce Australia's regulatory framework in relation to the classification and prohibition of particular pornographic practices. This provides the context to consider the ableist and heteronormative circumstances that abject stumping and fisting within Australian porn laws. I argue that the prohibition of stumping and fisting forecloses new forms of intimacies, cultures, and sexual ethics, and that the reasonable person in law is an ableist and heteronormative subject position that reinstates normative sexual practices. Not only do existing frameworks shore up ableist and heteronormative pornographic laws, but they also foreclose and pathologize disabled people and the practices they might otherwise choose to engage in or with.
Okay, so they are doing a literature review of Australian law. Good. I argue the prohibition of stumping and fisting. Okay, so it is prohibited in some capacity within the law. And now they're going to complain that, oh, well, that's just ableism and heteronormativity because, you know, ableist people, they might not be able to finger someone because they don't have fingers, so they have to stump things. And I'd like to say that I am surprised by something which I've just read later on in this paper, but I'm not. When they talk about Australia's regulatory framework and they mention the fact that there is a restricted category which pornography falls into, as in you must be over 18, you must be an adult to view adult material, they immediately counter this with the phrase, ageism notwithstanding. Sure, it is ageist discrimination to say that children should not be able to view material which has been objectively shown when children are exposed to it to mess up their brain development.
That seems to be creeping towards age of consent consent laws are ageist.
Yeah, this is one of the things I can't stand people going on about this. No, there is so much information. So many neuroscience studies have been done on children who have been sexually abused, children who have been exposed, even just exposed to pornography too young, and the impacts that has on their mental development, not only from a neurological standpoint, as in how it physically changes how their brains grow and develop, but then all of the carryover stuff into personality problems and learning problems and all sorts of things like that that comes up after it. I am so sick of people on this. I'm just going to go out there and assume that the author of this paper is far left, because there is no fucking way otherwise they will write about this retarded shit like this, but I'm so fucking sick of them playing with that boundary. like trying to just constantly testing that boundary. No, just stop. Like, age of consent, age of people getting access to adult material, especially of a sexual nature, that needs to be there. The fact that there is some gray area in that some societies have it a little bit higher and some have it a little bit, that is no excuse to say that it shouldn't be there. It should be there, and it should be as high as you can tolerate it going, because there are certain faculties of your brain which do not start working properly, like they're not fully developed until you are in your early 20s. That's like anywhere from 21 to 25, and they are specific parts of your brain and faculties to do with responsible decision making and informed decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't actually know that. So there is some scientific backing to,
We just
something
got
that is
something
seen as
sciencey out of
morally
this. It
obvious.
just wasn't in the paper.
Mm-hmm. We got I wasn't in the paper.
Should we keep should I keep going? Yeah, we should keep going, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so origin and context of analysis. An investigation of pornography may seem an unusual site of study to interrogate the concept and practices of ableism. No, not at all. What are you talking about? Obviously not. However, there's also there's a source there at the end of it. I'm not clicking on it, but I want you to know that there are sources. That's a sourced statement. However, in recognizing that notions of normalcy...
no, it's a noted statement.
It's a noted statement. I'm sorry. Yeah,
yes.
You're right. Okay. However,
in this sort of context, it's barely any difference, frankly.
Yeah.
Because the notes are just as word salady as the paper and just as meaningless as the paper, but I'd like to say I'm trying to do due diligence and giving this person the benefit of the doubt, but they don't fucking deserve it.
Yeah. All right. So, however, in recognizing that notions of normalcy and ableism are the sites of abjection and disableism, the gaze must be switched from disability and disableism to consider the ways in which normalcy and ableism is constructed to create the, quote, problem, end quote, of the disabled person. Davis, 2006. The problem that arises is determining how to engage in such an endeavor, and this is difficult given the relative dearth of existing research approaches. While disability and sex/uality or sexuality is entering scholarly discourse, see McRuer and Malo 2012, Perlin and Lynch 2016, Litter 2018, Gallup 2019.
That doesn't sound like a dearth of research. That sounds like there is some research that's being done on it.
Yeah. A focus on ableism remains underexplored. Campbell 2008 suggests that the inversion from disableism to ableism may produce different research questions and sites of study. It is in this context that I engage with pornography to open up speculatively and innovatively questions of disability or ability, pleasure, sex, and ableism. Recognizing...
I just have to go on this. This is a fucking bugbear of mine in papers like this, where they do this unnecessary slash in the middle of a word to make two words, like sex/uality, dis/ability. Just say ability and disability. Say sex and sexuality.
Yeah, don't be lazy. It's confusing.
Well, that's just it's not only laziness, but it's like this pseudo-intellectual stylistic thing that I see so many of these researchers doing, and it's like, you're not being clever and you're not being witty about this. It's a stylistic meme of certain folks within the academy, people like this. It's like, stop doing it. It's not proper grammar. And in papers like this, you need to be using proper grammar.
Yeah.
Or proper something. You know, what's interesting to me is that the people who create this stuff, this must be meaningful to them. Unless it's just all bullshit. No, it's all a sly wink and a nod. So what exactly does this do that's meaningful. What is this paper doing? I know it's total and utter bullshit, but it must have some kind of function.
I think it's mental masturbation, because usually when people, and maybe I'm not using the term mental masturbation correctly, but considering what we're reading, I'm gonna go ahead and take that risk anyway. It seems to me that the people who write these papers, they almost always are writing about something that is personal, and they're making it like societal. So
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So like
It's
this,
not just personal, it's also victimhood. They're also
yeah, but they're-
making
yes.
this argument that they're victims of society, or somebody is a victim of society.
Yes, but they're starting from themselves as victims. That's why the guy was able to write a paper about how he and his partner, who was disabled, were like going to the train, and they thought or felt as though someone was staring at them in a judgmental way, and it caused them to write a paper. And that tells me
Okay.
that they're always thinking about how they are personally impacted by the world and larger society in a negative way, and it's the impetus for them to write these papers and then try to make the case as to how their personal negative experience or their perceived negative experience is actually society's problem, not
Okay,
their
all right.
problem.
Can I just make a point?
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
that if you put this much effort into something, there has to be something more to it. It has to be a symptom of something, or has to have some kind of function. And I wonder if what the function is to construct some kind of moral center in society. So all of this affectation of victimhood is the intent is to construct something that we center our mind around morally, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's like society is destructive and evil and immoral and victimizes all of these vulnerable groups. It's like we want to have some kind of Satan and something to defeat in our lives, and we also want to have some kind of moral good that we all agree upon. This is like this is almost like a religious text, maybe,
Mm.
which, on a lot of I'm going deeper with this, but that's what I do.
Okay.
Go
No,
deeper.
I understand.
Yeah.
So basically, the devil in this paper is what? Heterosexual people and people who can make a fist.
I guess so.
Even
Yeah,
if they
would
don't
seem to
have
be that
all of
way.
their fingers, like if they only have like 3 fingers, or something, and they can make like a little nightcrawler fist or something. Those people are oppressing people that have stumps and want to engage in sexual stump pornography.
Wait for it. Like, seriously, if we get a little bit further in, I don't know how much we want to go through the Australia's regulatory framework, because I
Yeah.
don't think that this is about Australia's regulatory framework.
No, I don't think it is.
No.
It's
Because if it was, it would be a done and dusted issue of we've banned fisting in pornography or penetration with with something like a fist, which includes the use of a stump, and then someone would just say, "What about people who don't have hands but have sex lives? They don't really have a choice." And then it would just be like, "Oh, okay, maybe we should just put an amendment or something," and that would be where it would end.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to keep in mind here, this is not just about sex. This is about, if I'm reading this right, it's about pornography production, which is different from sex and sexual relationships, as in it's not illegal for you to do it just having sex with your partner. It's to do with specific regulations around how pornography is shot and presumably protection of people in that industry or something.
You mean the women's people? No, the women's.
Yeah, women in that industry, yes.
I think we should move to what's in a fist,
oh my
because
god.
I think that's the payload. Yeah, I
right.
think there's that's the punch there,
All right,
there.
let's what page is that, Allison?
It's page. It's the end of page 4.
Oh, I see it. What's in a fist? Okay, I gotta get myself ready for this. I'll read the super chats and then we'll do it, because I got 2 more. So Redicus gives us $10 and says, "Did TLDR f up his voice software or deep throat a pineapple?" I think is what you wanted to say. No, his voice is just a little bit deeper now. If you watch his like more recent videos, you'll see that his voice has gotten deeper. It's just as a thing. It's just like we were talking about before the show.
Discord is shit.
And yeah, and the Discord is kind of, it's not really the best. I mean, it's gotten better, but it is what it is. But it's just like, Christopher Lee early in his career. If you look at his voice, listen to his voice in a Hammer film, and then listen to him in Lord of the Rings, he doesn't sound the same, but it's the same guy. So Glassy Polar Bear gives us €5 and says, if anyone's French is not too rusty, Stephanie Iodard conference on barbarians, YouTube available, may be of interest for studying academia. Yeah, I don't speak French, but we do have a Frenchman in our Discord. Maybe I could ask him to look at it.
We actually have quite a few.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming we have more than one. At least one Frenchman. I don't tend to go around counting the Frenchies in our Discord. Okay.
Yeah, I think we got. I think we've got 4 or 5. But I don't know if Quebec qualifies. So.
Yeah, I think that Quebecois French and regular, Paris talk are slightly different.
Paris talk. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Anyway, what's in a fist? Notwithstanding the other fetishes that are refused classification in Australia, for the purposes of this section, I am interested in the fist. What meaning does...
Enter the fist. Kung Pao. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. What meaning does the fist convey to warrant its prohibition? I wish I had like a Bruce Lee movie I could play over the top of this while I'm reading this section. So, what is so problematic or confronting about the fist?
Okay, dude, do you not get it? People thought that it was harmful to women. It was abuse of women. The fisting is part aspect of rape culture. It's about doing violence to the female body. So they banned it. I guarantee that was the sequence of events. And now, after another subset of women worsters, women always have it worse. Porn is horrible to women. Have gotten something banned. This guy comes in and talks about how the banning is horrible to women.
It's not even banning when it comes to so-called stumping. Stumping is something which is refused classification. This is just from the part about the regulatory framework. It just says films refused classification are thus considered banned in Australia. They're unable to be sold, hired, advertised, exhibited, or imported. But it's not actually expressly forbidden. It's just because it's not allowed to have either, like a 12, 15, or 18 rating, you can't sell it. And that is apparently the area where stumping sits in, because it wasn't specified, because the lawmakers weren't thinking, so what happens in a film if someone shoves their stump up someone's arse?
Oh God, Jesus!
That's just
gonna end up just being quoted on its own.
When I heard stump fucking, I actually had a darker vision of what that meant, because I didn't know what it meant at the time, and I thought it was somebody sticking their genitals inside of someone's stump, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Well, I'm glad that that's not what this references, but I'm fairly certain that actually exists. Oh, and also one more thing I want to say. It sounds to me like the feminist logo has to change, because that's ableist. So instead of the fist going inside of the female symbol, they need to make it a stump going in. I'm just saying, otherwise I think that the feminist logo is pretty exclusionary, and it's not considering that some people don't have hands, and so maybe we should be taking that into consideration. So maybe that should be the next cause. Change the feminist logo.
I don't know if you can hear, but I'm clicking my fingers vigorously.
Okay. So
yeah, that's a cause that everybody, can get up our behind.
Yeah. Let's not say behind.
I see what you did there.
All right. Where was I? What's so problematic or confronting about the fist? To be sure, this discussion is not about the fist in and of itself, but rather the insertion of the fist into the rectum or vagina. Yet, Simultaneous.
Also, no oral fisting. Then.
No, not in the mouth.
God, you very exclusionary in your fetishes. There, I've got to say.
Oh my god. Yet simultaneously, it is about the fist because the insertion of a penis or sex toy into the rectum or vagina is conceived in far less problematic terms. This dissonance then accrues its meaning when the fist and rectum or vagina are brought together. One way to understand this relationship might be through Douglas, 1966, Douglas's notion of dirt as matter out of place. Dirt is not an absolute category. Rather, it is formed when something confuses or contradicts cherished classifications. Douglas, 1966, 37. Douglas writes, quote, "Shoes are not dirty in themselves, but it is dirty to place them on the dining table. Food is not dirty in itself, but it is dirty to leave cooking utensils in the bedroom or food bespattered on clothing. Similarly, bathroom equipment in the drawing room, clothing lying on chairs, outdoor things, indoors, upstairs things, downstairs, underclothing appearing where overclothing should be, and so on." In the context...
I contest that definition of dirty immediately.
Okay.
No, because when things are defined as being dirty in common parlance, you'd normally think of them as being soiled by something, as in something being in a state of, well, just something being soiled. Like I don't think I've ever heard of someone say clothing left on a chair as being dirty. It would normally be considered dirty because it was used, and that's why it's been left on a chair as opposed to being stowed away properly. Like, to me, and I would imagine to most people, the phrase dirty implies a... What's the word I'm looking for? When
Increase in possible
contamination.
contaminants.
Yeah, an increase in contaminants. What, something that's been contaminated in some capacity by something that you don't want it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And in that case, generally, people when there's a piece of clothing out of place, it's not necessarily. Well, I guess they could say the room is dirty, but usually they mean the room is cluttered.
Yeah.
Or,
well, normally, if something's like that, I wouldn't say it would be dirty, and I think most people would. I think they'd say it's untidy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Difference.
Yeah. Yeah. They're usually dirty means contaminated in some way. But let's I guess he's saying that dirty is something out of place. So
essentially the definition of dirty, or the term, it's matter out of place. So basically, otherwise it would just be matter, but because it's not where it's supposed to be, we consider that to be dirty because it's not where it should be. So in the
well, let's see where they go
with that. Okay, so in the context of fisting, the fist, rectum, or vagina is not dirty on their own. So like a vagina by itself isn't dirty, although I have seen some dirty ones. But their assemblage, like putting the fist into the vagina, creates dirt because of their matter out of place. This discussion of matter out of place is obviously tied to norms or community standards or cherished classifications, as Douglas puts it. A question: what are the conditions in which inserting a fist into the rectum or vagina is not normal? Well, there is the fact that most people don't do that.
Yeah. That's pretty much making it not normal by definition.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, this idea is like it's out of place as being tied to norms or community standards.
Can I ask you guys a really weird question? Do you or have you ever known anyone, or do you yourself, engage in any fisting?
No.
No.
Okay. Any of you guys watching?
That sounds horrifying.
I know it sounds horrifying, but I have to ask because this person is making the claim that somehow it is to them being unfairly categorized or erroneously categorized as abnormal, but I'm fairly certain it's abnormal. So I'm asking the chat if you or anyone you know or have ever known has engaged in fisting. It's possible that some people do know people, but I'm just putting it out there. We're just going to take a poll, and you're going to say no, or you're probably not going to say anything because maybe you don't want to let people know.
Here's a question that occurs to me. Unless you're saying that these disabled people do not have genitals, then like normal sex or what we can normative or whatever is available to them. Why would the fact that sex that is not available to all people be considered abnormal or fetishistic be an issue? Like,
it's not, but they want it to be, but they don't want it to have. I think the goal is to destigmatize it, because I mean, people have fetishes. Generally, they keep them to themselves, but there's something strangely, I don't know. Like, I've noticed that in recent years, it's become more. There's like a desire to make these fetishes mainstream. And I don't know why
Interesting.
that is, but it definitely is a thing that, people do for whatever one reason or another. And I'm talking about like really out there, like people vomiting on people and things like that. They want to make that normal because maybe they feel some insecurity, or they're resentful of the fact that what they're into isn't normal. Maybe they try to bring these things up to other, potential partners, and they say, well,
or
I'm into
maybe
this
they're just
thing.
getting off on forcing their weird shit onto other people.
Yeah, they just get that maybe it's a fetish to force your fetish onto other people. Sure. But it could also be because maybe they want their, what they're into to be as normal as like missionary, so that when they bring it up to a potential partner in the future and they say, well, I'm into this thing, if the partner says, well, I'm not into that thing, they can basically call them a weirdo. It's like it's like trying to change the, like expand on the spectrum of what is considered to be normal, while erasing the fringe and bringing the fringe into normal, which of course only makes like a more crazy out there fringe, like ultimately people the weirder and weirder shit. So
when you define something as normal, not as in like normative or norm, but normal, you're talking about things which most people do.
yeah.
Like when you're getting into this weird, wacky, out there stuff that most people don't do, it's not normal because most people don't do it.
Yeah.
Like that's all the term means. The term is just an acknowledgement that this is something that a minority of people do. It's not even necessarily judgmental.
No.
It just is.
Right. And I think that people perceive their tastes, whether it's, if it's stump fucking, for example, the idea that that's considered to be abnormal or not just not normal, they associate a kind of moral judgment to the fact that it's abnormal, and they don't want that. So they want to like they think that it stigmatizes it, and so they want to destigmatize it. And the fact is, it may be that it is normal because, or it is considered to be abnormal because most people don't want to do it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't. Just means that you have to accept that what it is that you're into is in fact not normal.
Yep.
So
I mean, I'm quite happy to still have the moral judgment side of it. You filthy fucking degenerate who needs to be gassed. But
he doesn't mean that, guys. Or maybe he does. Who cares?
No, people who write these sorts of papers, no, fuck you. You're just useless. You are a drain, not only to the academy, but you are a detriment to the furthering of humanity as a species. But the thing is, what are they going to do about it? It's like, yes, I'm pointing out that what you're doing is abnormal, and I am judging you for your abnormality. What are you going to do about it? Huh? How are you going to stop me from holding that opinion?
Make it hate speech.
Yeah, it's like, you're going to make it illegal for me to express that opinion. I'm still going to have the opinion, though. So what are you going to do? And then all you're going to do is like, oh, you can't express it. Okay, now I hate you even more. What are you going to do about it?
Yep.
Okay, let's get a little further in this because
Sure.
we're running on
We're getting
the
low
half
on
hour
time
here.
here. No. We've been going for an hour and 18 minutes.
We
So
haven't even gotten to the lesbians yet.
there's more. Yes, I know. We're okay. Let's keep going. All right. This discussion of matter out of place is obviously tied to norms or community standards. Question: what are the conditions in which inserting a fist into a rectum or vagina is not normal? I suggest that society's panic with fisting, specifically with why it is constructed as non-normative and subsequently prohibited in Australian porn, lay with the ways in which the practice is desexualized and degenitalized, as well as its association with masculine, oh boy, here we go, devirilization and queer praxis.
Devirilization. So they mean that they just mean that men. I guess it's that fisting makes men feel effeminate.
Sorry,
Or
the dog is barking.
questioning their virility. It's no, I don't see how that would be a thing.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah,
because lesbian fists are a threat to men's sense of worth of their genitals, I guess.
And desexualized. I don't think anyone who knows what fisting is thinks it's desexual. I think anyone who knows what it is knows that it's sexual.
Yeah.
And I love the fact society's panic with fisting. It's like, how many people even know what it is, and let alone are running around screeching, oh my god, we need to stop it?
Queer praxis.
I don't want to do it, but I don't want to stop other people from doing it.
I mean, unless you're trying to fish out a wedding ring or a quarter or something, like, I don't really see any...
It sounds more like a form of domestic violence than it is a sex act, but that fits right in with lesbian couples.
I love the note for the queer praxis thing. Foucault's work has been central in the development of my arguments in this section, because of course he has. I would like to cite Foucault directly, but I have relied on Halperin's translations in many instances.
Of course
it's yeah, so first of all, of course, it's Foucault, and second of all, you're relying on someone else's translations of it. So in other words, you're not actually going to cite it. You're going to cite a citation of a citation. That's not good.
It's not academic, but this person, look, you know, these papers are really hard to write. They take a long time, and this person has to do lectures in this college. I mean, it's just so much. All right, it's so hard being smarter than everybody else and morally superior. The desexualization/degenitalization of anal fisting can be understood in terms of its de-emphasis on the genitals in place of an emphasis on non-genital parts of the body, specifically in this context, the anus. Alperin, 1995.
The anus is not part of your genitals. Your genitals are your reproductive part.
Oh, that's what she says.
Anus is not that.
She does say, the writer does say that. This is... replacing...
Are you sure it's a woman?
I don't know.
It's a man.
It's a man.
It's a man.
I don't want to...
I would imagine it's a gay man, because, you know, that thing that he wrote where he was walking around with that woman and he was like, she's disabled and I'm queer. I think it's a gay guy.
Yeah.
And I think it's a gay guy who's got hang-ups about the fact that people don't already worship the faggots as much as they do in Western society. He's not being worshipped enough.
Okay, so I think in the context of this, of that last sentence, to be fair, he is saying that the anus is not sexual, but that we don't treat it as a sexual organ, but he's considering that to be desexualized. Exactly.
I know, but he's talking about the thing. It's like it's desexualized and degenital. It's like well, of course it's degenital. That is the definition of how you define genital.
Yeah, like exactly.
That part of the sentence is unnecessary.
I don't like that words mean things. Words meaning things is mean.
I have to abide by the meaning of generally accepted meanings of words.
Yeah.
I don't have my own pronouns and my own language.
All right, like other practices, such as bondage, flagellation, and humiliation, fisting bypasses the genitals and eroticizes non-genital parts of the body, such as the nipples, the skin, or in this case, the anus.
I want to see nipple fisting. Nipple fisting. Come on, deviant art. Don't let me down.
Also,
I'm sure that's happened. I'm sure that's a thing already.
Skin fisting?
What?
Skin fisting? That
No.
becomes even more a question.
Yeah.
In my mind.
I mean, I think they're talking about like whipping. I don't know. That goes back to your haptic feedback paper, Allison. It's actually
no, it does not. That is pure. It's pure and beautiful. This is not that.
Well, I'm just saying, people who are into paddles and being tied up and stuff like that, I think that the skin as an organ is what they're focusing on. I don't know because I don't do that shit, but I think that is what they're getting at. And he's basically saying that the skin, but that
don't focus on the skin.
No, but but in the way that they do, like through this other, I guess more pain-oriented method. I don't know. I'm just vanilla as shit, guys. So maybe I'm just not really the guy to ask. So through this process, other erotic uses for the genitals emerge, whereby stimulation to the point of orgasm dissolves. Notes that fisting scenes in pornography. So Dean 2014 notes that fisting scenes in pornography often feature non-erect, semi-erect, or detumescent genitals. These practices expose, following, quote, this is from the source, a remapping of the body's erotic sites, a redistribution of its so-called erogenous zones. So this person doesn't believe in erogenous zones. A breakup of the erotic monopoly traditionally held by the genitals. Oh my God. So the genitals they oppress the rest of the body with where they have complete and absolute monopolistic control over
their function.
Yes, with their function.
I'm thinking right now that my liver oppresses my lungs by detoxifying my blood.
Oh my God.
Kidneys. Not even going to start on my kidneys.
Then this is just okay. I'm going to finish this quote here. A breakup of the erotic monopoly traditionally held by the genitals, and even a re-eroticization of the male genitals as sites of vulnerability instead of as objects of veneration.
What objects of veneration?
Yeah.
Sites of vulnerability. I mean, has this guy never seen one of the hilarious shots to the nuts that is in a lot of films? Is that not an indication of vulnerability? And also an indication of complete lack of veneration? Do they ever substantiate this idea that we venerate men's genitals in the West?
Nah, because we have done in the past. I mean, the penis cults are a thing.
Yeah, like in other countries.
Still go in Japan, I think it is.
Yeah, in Japan they do that.
Yeah, that was a big thing in the West. Various pagan religions throughout Europe did it quite a lot. Yeah.
But not Christianity. In fact, Christianity is rather critical of penises in general.
Christians literally worship a vagina.
Yeah.
So
it's almost pretty literal. Yeah. We definitely consider it the genital organ that brought us closest to God.
Yep.
Just saying. I mean, the Christ went through one of them, and it wasn't a penis.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ouch! Just thinking about it. So, fisting then is a self-transformative practice that rewrites understandings of the body and forms of pleasure that are normatively tied to the genitals. Fisting can be a liberatory exercise that frees bodily pleasure from organ specificity.
Wait, just a sec. So this opposes the veneration of the penis, but nothing about the vagina. So we're not going to say that fisting opposes the veneration of the vagina?
Well, this is a gay man.
Vaginas
are icky.
Yeah.
No, but he.
Although he has talked about stumping vaginas,
Oh, maybe they
Um,
mean veneration of the penis in the gay community.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. There's no context given. It just says this is
That
another
makes it a little
person's
bit more
paper that's
sense.
being possibly, yeah. Unless there is just an assumed, because, you know, I mean, if you ask a feminist, do we worship the penis or the vagina more? She's gonna say the penis. So I mean, like, I even if it's not true, I mean, literally, I think that veneration of the penis is so unusual that it's become its own fetish, which means it's on the fringe, which means it's not normal. So I just think that you know, SJW is gonna SJW. So it's all about like how does this victimize me? Well, the penis is worshipped, and so we can't have that. We gotta make it the fist. Gotta spread the love. Stop monopolizing pleasure, penis. just like oppressing the rest of the body in all of its Jesus Christ. All right. Yeah, so anyway, what was I saying? The practice is less end-driven, teleological action aimed at achieving release of sexual tension through orgasm, but more a physical practice where intensity and duration of feeling, not climax, are its key values. The journey is more important than fisting is an art that involves seducing one of the jumpiest and tightest muscles in the body, and unlike heteronormative sexual intercourse, it is an often lengthy and gradual process, and it does not have a conventional beginning, erection, middle, fucking, and endpoint, orgasm, like that seen in heteronormative sexual practice. Fisting is not a prelude to penile sexual intercourse, but as Dean notes, is rather an end in itself. It's an end. Get that? Get it? Like
yeah, apart from the fact that, you know, the fisting and all of that stuff does tend to end in orgasm anyway. It's kind of the point of the whole sex act is getting there. But yeah, let's just ignore that, because
This really isn't selling fisting for me. So you don't orgasm, you just, I guess, get really damaged and bleed a lot.
yeah,
Great.
check the prostate, you know. It's everything's okay.
and I love that. It doesn't have a conventional beginning. You don't consider the application of lube a conventional beginning that everyone engages in if they're going to do this. Like a fucking necessary beginning.
I mean, I hope so. Jesus. All right. Shall I keep going?
Only real men take it without lube.
Oh, God. Fisting can also be understood in terms of its devirilization, which in turn produces and is related to the neutralization of conventional forms of masculinity. Oh, we're talking about masculinity now. So the neutralization of conventional forms of masculinity. That's like
Well,
the
you
goal.
knew it was going there. That
Of
this
course.
is the payload. This is the condemnation of masculinity and society. That's the payload of all of these. It always goes back to reinforcing the idea that women are oppressed by society.
Yeah.
I mean, all of it.
The takeaway is, guys, take a fist once in a while, or better yet, a stump. So consider it a feminist act. Specifically, the act of fisting creates new forms of masculine sexual identity that are no longer centered around the phallus. And this, of course, this takes from Foucault and Le Biteau, I think. Or I don't really care if I pronounce it right or wrong. Foucault,
okay, but what about all of the sexual identity which is dealing with hands and mouth?
We need to decolonize those or something.
Yeah, because it's like all the treaties throughout human society or human societies around the world which have been written, things like the Kama Sutra and whatnot, none of those mention things like fellatio or cunnilingus at all. Never mentioned in any of them, ever. Everything about sex with men is just penises.
Yes, of course. Fellatio and cunnilingus, that's just like people like slipping and falling in each other's genitals. Those are accidents. It just happens.
And also, how dare you describe this entire thing as if genitals have any particular worth when it comes to sexuality, you know?
Yeah, right.
That is creating a hierarchy of sexual function with genitals on the top, Brian.
Yeah, that's right. That's wrong. What we should be doing.
How dare
we should what we should be doing is trying to figure out a way to sexualize neck folds and the appendix, and you guys are focused on focused on genitals, like so mainstream.
Even the anus is too. It's like we need to create a hierarchy of parts. That of the eroticization of parts, and we need to stigmatize those parts that have been heavily eroticized and privileged throughout all of human history. Like, well, not the vagina, because we don't want to do that, because women's always have it worse. The vagina is as stigmatized as a non-sexual part as elbows. So, oh god,
What
like, we need
about
to
the
make-
weenus? Where's the weenus?
What the hell is a weenus?
Yeah, that's your elbow. Like on your elbow, there's like that bit of skin that's kind of like folds up. Like it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's the weenus.
Okay,
yeah. So
where the weenus has been universally excluded from the privilege of
it's so lonely.
sexualization.
The weenus is lonely. Yeah.
Oh my god! But the thing is that the way they'll do it is they will ensure that the vagina is always subject to the same kinds of desexualizing oppression as every other body part that isn't sexualized. So the vagina is just as oppressed as the weenus. In fact, the vagina is even more oppressed than the weenus, even though the vagina has been consistently sexualized throughout all of human history. Does anybody understand what I'm saying? But I think I follow the underlying logic of all of this, because all of these tributaries all flow and pop out into the great grand Mississippi, or gigantic river of women have it worse.
I'm just amazed. I'm sorry I was distracted because I saw a comment in the chat that says, "Wait, you Philistines didn't know about neck fat sex." And I'm now realizing that when I made that joke about neck rolls, I didn't realize that it was a real thing. And now I'm sad.
It will be.
No, I think it is a real thing. I don't think it will
happened.
be. I think it's happened. I think it's
one
real.
Of these things, no matter what it is, it is.
If
it's
you can
one of
think
the
of it,
rules of the internet. Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, if you can think of it, there's porn of it, and if you can think of it, no matter what it is someone's fetish.
Yeah, someone's doing it right now somewhere. That's what it is.
And I'd like to point out, since we're dealing with stumps and stumping, if your stump's in the right place, the weenus could actually be in there.
It's true.
Jesus
It's true. Okay. How
did we get to this point?
I think that's the reason for this. Yeah, Richard is in there going, "It's a real thing." Yeah, see, neck fat sex, it's a real thing. I don't know. Okay, so see, the problem isn't that it exists. The problem is that so many people know about it. What I think. But Foucault with Les Biteaux writes that fisting practitioners may, quote, use the signs of masculinity, but not at all to return to something that would be of the order of phallocratism or machismo, but rather to invent themselves, to allow themselves to make their masculine body a place for the production of extraordinary polymorphous pleasures, detached from the valorizations of sex, and particularly the male sex. Take that, patriarchy. We're gonna we've had enough of your phallocracy. It's like
phallocracy.
The phallocracy, where the world is ruled by the dick. What?
Oh, geez.
Oh. Democrats should now change the name of their party so that there isn't a D by their name, because that's oppressive. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, you guys want to say anything? I'm like, this is really wearing me down. We've been going for an hour and a half, and it's like this.
We haven't even gotten to the stumping.
Should I jump ahead or should I keep going?
Well, let me see here. Well, obviously the phallocracy has to fall.
Mm-hmm.
That's the conclusion of the fisting section. Because everything moves towards that. Masculinity is wrong, men are bad, patriarchy is awful, let's destroy society. That's always the end goal of these papers.
Mhm.
But where does stumping come in? Let's find out. Go to that section.
What page
And
is it?
it's just a little bit further down. It's page
Stumping.
7. Yes.
All right, we're gonna.
I'd just like to quickly jump a paragraph or two up from stumping, just because they actually get to this part. It's fisting is inexcusably queer,
What?
because yes, those will be shocked by this anal imagery are the hetero, genitive normative, and the non-queer. Yeah, so it's basically this person is asserting that fisting is definitely not something that heterosexual people deal with. Of course, there's no citations for that. There's no evidence given for that. It's just this person just asserts fisting is definitely queer, and then goes on to say fisting in pornography is prohibited because it is non-heteronormative.
Oh, I see.
Also,
Even though, of course, going up and reading the part about the Australian pornography thing, they actually say no depiction of violence, sexual violence, or sexualized violence or coercion is allowed. And obviously, fisting, because it's kind of punching, sort of, could be
It's
considered
violent?
sexual violence. Yeah, would be considered sexual violence. So it's not that it's banned because it's not something that straight people do, to which obviously citation needed on straight people don't do it. But no, it'll be banned because it falls under the category of violent sexual actions. It's got
How
nothing to
is-
do with straightness.
how is fisting any more queer than like cunnilingus or fellatio? Like,
Don't
how
know,
is it
and this
any
author
more
will
queer
never
than it?
substantiate that claim.
And also, how isn't he sort of speaking for a lot of people to say that fisting defines queerness?
Yeah, but
Or I mean,
Yeah,
the only people that might take issue with that are heterosexual people, and
Yeah,
those
but
people's opinions don't matter.
homosexual people who actually don't want to fist, they just want to use genital anus sex, or whatever, or just cunnilingus, or just fellatio, or I don't know,
what
jousting.
about people who just want to have penis and vagina sex in the missionary position for the sole purpose of procreation?
Those
As
people
God
Obviously,
are
those people are
degenerates.
perverts. They're just
Yeah.
degenerates.
You probably
Didn't
next thing
you-
you're gonna tell me is that they're gonna hold hands in public too.
Didn't you know that babies were created by Satan to destroy Mother Earth? And that penis and vagina missionary sex is the demonic incantation that brings them about?
Yeah.
Don't know about you, but I'm convinced. I'm going to go write a feminist PhD paper.
All right.
Go
Next
get
time we have him on, he's gonna be Dr. Teal Deer, PhD.
Again.
Again. Well, this time it really matters. All right. So I'm gonna keep going. Yeah. So it says finally, fisting can be understood as queer praxis. Is that what you mean by them saying this is a queer thing now, and we own this, and you can't have this, otherwise we get to call you gay or whatever?
Well, it's that, but it was also Foucault's description of it about the queerness of fisting, because Foucault apparently was very big into this or something. But Foucault, well, probably not actually Foucault. It's probably this whoever it was that they said they're citing in lieu of Foucault, because
Yeah.
they don't actually want to read Foucault. It's probably that person who said it, and so someone else said it, so it must be true.
Yeah, they're just adding that
Fuck
in.
it.
Yeah, fuck it. Okay, so, well, I mean, the whole thing's bullshit anyway. Stumping.
Which is not how you want it to be if you're going to be fisting.
No. All right, now stumping. So we're going to, elevate this conversation now to the level where it should be. Stumping.
Or at least to the level where we understand what the point of the paper is.
Yeah.
Because stumping was the payload.
It was. We had to wait for it, though. We had to build towards it. Now we're here. We're building. Stumping is a relatively rare yet important invention in crip sex lives. Is it okay to say crip? I feel like that's almost like it could be construed as a derogatory way to refer to crippled people, or is the word cripple the derogatory term, but crip is like academic? I'm not sure how this works. So
well, they talk about crip studies and
Jesus
crip lenses and stuff. So I assume, according to this person, these are the academic terms, but give it like 10 years and they'll probably be unpersoned for calling cripples crips.
Yes. Okay, so Crip sex lives. I can't help but think about like gangbangers in LA or something. Like when I hear that.
Yeah.
It involves the insertion of a person's missing arm or leg limb into another person's rectum or vagina. Like fisting.
I like how they put missing in quotes. It's
yeah, because it's
no,
not...
it's actually missing. Like there is actually supposed to be something there that's not.
Well, it could be a phantom limb. The phantom pain. That's what this is. Metal Gear Solid 6. All right. Like fisting, stumping is also degenitalized, desexualized, and devirilized, and it enables new forms of pleasure and the eroticization of non-normative parts of the body, Dean 2014. In the terms of Foucault and Gallagher and Wilson, 1984, 1997, 165, stumping also produces pleasure with very odd things, very strange parts of our bodies, in very unusual situations, and so on. Stumping is closely
related. Say the exact same thing about sex toys.
Yeah, you could, but sex toys are phallocratic centrist. And
how are they phallocratic centrist when most of the times they're used in vaginas?
Those are difficult questions that only a lesbian can answer, and I honestly don't know.
Or this person, apparently, because since she's declared that...
I'll tell you, I don't understand lesbians. I don't get them.
I mean, I just get the feeling this person is only talking about... Like, it seems like they're paying lip service to women engaging in this practice, but it seems like most of the time, I think this author is thinking about gay men.
Yeah. They're probably not really thinking about lesbians.
Yeah, or straight people.
Or straight people. Well, no, they're actively pushing against straight people. They're just leaving lesbians out because they don't care about them.
Despite focusing on gay men, he's attacking masculinity and phallocracy.
Mm-hmm. Phallocentrism.
Is creating a new way of stigmatizing gay men the way you want to go here?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Fag drag. Come on, fag drag.
Fag drag.
Come on.
I don't get it.
He means dragging fags behind the car.
Oh, yeah, I see.
It's a very terrible thing that we don't do because it's very terrible.
It's
an edgy joke.
Not in this country.
Although for this guy, I would make an exception.
Ooh, that is a comedic threat of violence. Please don't arrest me, Canadian government.
Yeah. Well, it's not because he's gay.
No, it's because he wrote this, and I have to read it.
This is extreme literary criticism, not homophobia.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Maybe it's both.
Okay, so anyway.
All right.
Where was I? Stumping also produces pleasure with very odd things, very strange parts of our bodies, in very unusual situations, and so on. Stumping is closely related to fisting in that the stump can simultaneously act as a phallus and fist. Derek Douglas, an arm amputee, notes this simultaneity. Whatever. He notes this.
Simultaneity.
Yeah, it's basically...
Why are you making up stupid or using...
Notes this phenomenon. He could have just said that, but... Okay, his quote. An amputated arm can be a major turn-on to certain people. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to leap into a phallic context. My friends kid me about having a super dick. It's not unusual for a partner to want to lick or suck my stump. Actually, the end of my stump is quite sensitive and erotic in certain situations. And yes, when lubed up, well, you get the picture. I didn't want the picture, but yes, I do. The concept of fisting without a fist. You know what he could do, though, if he wanted to make things more interesting, is he could take his stump and maybe like dress it up like put a puppet, like with a puppet or something, and maybe put a hole in the front of the puppet, and the stump comes out the front like it's actually the puppet's penis. And, you have like this, and you can have different characters. It could be like the Pope, or you can make a puppet of like like a, I don't know, like a sheik, or perhaps King George,
Like
or
the chic.
yeah, you could like,
I
and
gotcha.
you basically wear it like, I don't know where the
Leather coat.
amputation is at, but if the puppet is sitting like kind of like just past the elbow, let's say you're cut off at the wrist, then you wear it in such a way that your stump is kind of popping out, and they have their pants open, and when you're stumping somebody, it looks like the puppet's fucking them. I'm saying there's some creative. You could put like maybe a little cap on the tip of your stump that looks like a dickhead. I mean, you can at least try to have some fun with it as well.
I would imagine there's probably already someone who has that as a tattoo.
If you can think of it.
Yep.
So.
And can I just point out that we had a proper me and intellectual moment in this? It's like, it's like, you, a common pleb peasant, anything's a dildo if you're brave enough. Me, an intellectual, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to leap to a phallic context.
You didn't miss that, did he? You just said anything's a dildo if you're brave enough. But no, he had to dress it up in some pseudo intellectual.
You can get some
fucking bullshit
tattoos.
jargon.
Get some tattoos on your stump that have like veins running up, and maybe like hair like up by the elbow. I don't know. Just be creative, but keep it to yourself.
That weakness. Okay.
All right, moving on. Okay, so Douglas highlights how the stump can act as a phallus or fist, much like fisting. This quote also illustrates how stumps can become erogenous zones, thereby illuminating how these zones are itinerant rather than biologically fixed. Stumping also allows sites of injury to be transformed into sites of pleasure. Just as amputees speak of phantom pain, one wonders whether they might also feel phantom pleasure. They played us like a damn fiddle! Okay.
Well, of course you can, because phantom pain is just nerves firing for no particular reason. Like, there's no actual stimulus, they just fire. You can get those things regarding pleasure sensors as well. Like, that is a known phenomenon within medicine. Like, there are actually people out there. Like, there was even news stories a few years ago about, like, obviously it was picked up by mostly trashy tabloids because they got to write the title "Woman Just Can't Stop Orgasming" and things like that. But that was the kind of phenomenon that she experienced. It was those nerves would trip for seemingly no reason with no stimulus. Like, that can actually happen. And it's weird that they write in this thing, the quote illustrates how the stump can be an erogenous zone, and yet earlier on they were talking about how erogenous is basically linked entirely to genitals, and it's like, well, no, you've just defeated your own premise there. Anything can become erogenous because it's to do with nerve signaling.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, and then it's not.
No, I think what they're saying is people make, or a culture, the phallocentric culture has made everything erogenous associated with genitals, and they're challenging that.
Yeah, which is in no way true, because we know that different people have different erogenous zones because different people respond differently to different stimulus. And they say here, thereby illuminating how the zones are itinerant rather than biologically fixed. It's like, no, they are biologically fixed insofar as there are universal erogenous zones, things like the genitals, because obviously they've got a load of nerve sensors there, and evolutionarily it's very advantageous for those to be erogenous zones because they encourage you to have sex, which is procreational. Like, if sex didn't have the erogenous effect that it had on the human brain, if it didn't trick the mesolimbic reward system as heavily as it does with the massive build up to the payoff, very few people would do it. But it's the fact that it's like the strongest naturally existing stimulus to your dopamine and serotonin sensors. It's the fact that it's that is why it's like, yeah, people love it. It's like it's like basically the strongest natural high that exists.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. At this point, I think you guys are just evaluating
Yeah,
this
we're
fucking paper.
over.
Yeah, I know, but it's just funny.
It is funny. It is funny. All right, I think that we'll move on to the next one because I think they're gonna really start making a case here. So or something. Importance of, well, I mean, as opposed to just exposing us to their fetish, you know, and just telling us why they love it. And I'm like, what are you selling this to me? Because I'm not buying. The importance of stumping in pornography cannot be overstated. In Stump 2003, yes, that's a real movie, an American pornographic film created and directed by one Dick Wad, a young Dutchman. That's the name of the guy. This isn't funny,
of course,
guys.
it's going to be a pen name or like the equivalent of a pen name, but still,
it could be. It could be on his birth certificate.
Richard Wad. Cruel parents, if that's the case.
Jeez, and again, this is academia, folks.
Yeah, this is academia, guys. I mean, come on, don't laugh, okay? This is serious stuff. All right. One film directed by Dick Wad, a young Dutchman, Aiton, appears in his first pornographic film. Aiton has both his legs amputated, one above the knee and the other below. He is invited.
That's commitment to a role, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's like move over Christian Bale and welcome Aiton, I guess. He is invited to a dungeon party and is then fucked by two men. Following this, Aiton stumps one of them. While this film involves many scenes with many partners depicting many practices such as pissing, cum, fisting, stumping, etc. I like how cum is there, like it's just as out there as the other stuff. Like, not only do they piss on each other and fist each other and stump each other, but there was jizz involved. Wad suggests in the film's description on his website that the true climax of this video is Aiton's sexual awakening to the possibilities available to a man without feet. Aiton's sexual pleasure and passion, as well as his amazement at the events and practices that he engages in and unfold before him, is evident for those who watch the film. Wad provides some context to Aiton's appearance in Stump. Quote, "People are demanding that we stop the stream. They can't take it anymore." I think it's really important to point out that this guy did it because he was curious about trying something that would open up new sexual avenues for him, i.e. using his stump as a huge cock. He also said that he wanted to see what it would be like to be an amputee sex symbol. He left the video shoot with me, and on the drive home, I hope he had a towel, told me that this experience had changed his life and was probably the most positive thing that had happened to him since the accident that caused him to lose his legs. Wad is quoted in Dean 2014. Stumping had a profound effect on Aiton, or Eaton, it might be Eaton, and I suggest that these possibilities should not be foreclosed for others, whether in pornography or elsewhere. In a context in which disabled people are constituted as asexual, and unable or immobile, stumping foregrounds sexual practices and possibilities and physical mobility. Stumping has the potential to create new possibilities and ways of being, but like fisting, these are also the reasons why ableist society does not consider such practices to meet community standards, put in quotes. Like
no, we're not trying to make the disabled have more miserable lives. It's because fisting was seen as being violent, and then stumping just went along for the ride. Like, seriously, if you have a problem with it, just petition the lawmakers to change it. I'm sure they will.
Yeah, it's just simple. Just say, okay, stumping, we want you to actually classify it. Because that's the problem here. It's unclassified. Because lawmakers weren't thinking about it when they came up with the... So just petition them and say, look, we want this classified. And then it'll be classified like fisting. So no one will be able to do it anyway.
Yeah, once they're finished reacting to the request, they'll probably...
Yeah, well, once you have stood up in Parliament and said, I believe that the honourable gentleman should reconsider the classification of stumping. For those who don't know, stumping as defined by some bullshit that I've just made up, the insertion of a stump caused by amputation into the anus or vagina. Not oral. You're not allowed to do that.
No mouth stumping. That's just
Because that would probably be considered very
Generation.
violent.
That's the next generation here, guys. You see, this guy is already establishing himself as the phallocracy that phallically said that the only places that you could insert a stump are the places that you would insert a penis safely without the fear of having it bitten off. You see where I'm going there? So obviously this guy is the phallocracy of the future.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not deep-throating that stump, then you're doing it wrong.
Gotta be the new normal. Okay.
Get your mouth around my leg stump. Swallow it. Swallow it like an anaconda.
Look, I'm
dislocate your jaw, bitch.
This guy who got amputated found some worth in what happened to him, but why this? Like,
I don't think it's about that guy, though. I think that's just like,
it doesn't feel like it's about that guy.
No, it's not.
Even if they had just talked about this in the context of like queer sexualities and I don't even know why that has to exist, but queer and disabled sexualities without the horrendous victim complex. Like, that's really the problem with this.
If we lived in an ANCAP society, we wouldn't be reading this paper because you'd be okay doing that if you want.
Yeah. No, there would be no regulation. You could fuck whatever you wanted.
Yeah, as long as you weren't making like sexual snuff films against people's like consent, there would be no regulation.
A non-aggression pact, you see, not consent. It would have been against the non-aggression pact.
Exactly.
Okay, I think we are now half an hour over.
Yeah, we really should stop.
Let's go to the after show.
Can I read the last paragraph of this? Oh
shoot! I used the forbidden word. I meant the patron show.
I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you should beat yourself up later for that. So I'll read the super chats and then we'll close out. I think you guys got a sense of where this is going, and I hope
think it's going to take any left turns.
I hope you learned something from this, you bigots. Also, stop holding hands with people. Just like cut off your own hand and just run around trying to force it inside of other people's asses. That's basically what we've learned. Okay. So Xerax gives us $5.
Hierarchy like this with phallocentrism on the bottom top.
Can we? Is there a way for us to make like something that comes close to a vagina by removing limbs, like maybe kind of making like an innie or something inside the stump? Yes,
invaginate something via, I don't know. You know what, Brian? I think this is getting more deplorable by the second. I just wanted to say,
you brought this forward.
They're creating a moral hierarchy here.
Yep.
They're creating a moral hierarchy, and they are basically saying that phallocentric heteronormative is immoral. So Brian is not completely completely out of left field when he's saying that they're trying to force you to do this. They're literally saying that the phallocracy is responsible for the worst thing you could ever do, which is harm women. Just saying. So he's not completely out of left field. This is, and yeah, I don't really want to live in a world where I can't have normal sex because it's wrong.
Yeah.
Or even in a world where they've somehow transferred the immorality of stumping, which nobody cares about for the most part. I really have never seen any "don't stump" signs.
No,
ever in my life.
But somebody should make one because I'd like to see what it looks like.
Have you ever seen a "don't stump" protest?
Seriously? No, but I kind of want to because I want to know what the the infographic for that would look like. All right, I'm gonna read the super chats and then we're gonna go. Xerax gives us $5 and says Kurt Jenkins, "Stump from Stump the Yard" movie soundtrack. Okay, Sammy Puff gives us 20 kronas and says, "I'm not into fisting, but $1 is $1. Gray Man Media gives us $5 and says, "Why can't they just post these in weird ideas to message boards like they used to? Keep this link out of academia and put it in Hustler and hentai manga. Gray Man, I don't know if you know this, but there's more stuff like this in academia than there is in Hustler and hentai manga. And it's like peer reviewed, accredited. Sometimes it gets printed. This isn't like this seems to be strange. Like, I think there's kind of maybe there's a running bet or a contest between professors to see who can like go the wildest, like go the most fringe. But I do think that these are pretty common. There seems to be a strange obsession with sexualizing everything, and in like the most out there ways in academia, and by extension in our media too. So,
and also now you can't find this in Hustler because God forbid it actually make any man feel aroused.
yeah,
That
like
would
you
just
guys heard that the World Health Organization has like recommended that children at the by the age of 4 be taught about masturbation, right? Like that's a real thing. That's a thing. The World Health Organization.
Wasn't there also some sex ed thing where they were actually talking to 4-year-olds about fisting?
Yeah,
I
I
seem
think
to recall
so.
that being a thing.
I think that was a thing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, this stuff that's happening in academia, it's not like in some vacuum somewhere. It's actually having an impact. So, all right. Cyberzerk, I already read that. No, I didn't read that one. He just gave before. Cyberzerk gives us 50 kronas and says, I heard erotic happens mostly in the head, so shouldn't heading be mentioned? Well, yeah, but some people don't have heads, Cyberzerk, so, you better watch it with that exclusionary language. Dave in Deutschland, like, what's the Hessian supposed to do? Dave in Deutschland gives us €5 and says, I've heard that there's a really interesting international article penned by Bukaki, Benios, and Chode. I'm sure. I'm sure that such a thing exists, and maybe Mr. Dick Wad knows who of them. Okay, so that's all the super chats. Alison, do you want to take us out?
All right, yeah, sure. So we're doing our monthly fundraiser to fund Brian, Hannah, and Prim. You can go to feedthebadger.com/project/badger-media-blitz if you want to make sure that we're able to continue our lineup each month. And yeah. Oh, also, we now have a free patron area, or a free public square within our patron community. If you'd like to try that out, get a taste of the community before you commit to subscribing, you can go to badgernation.online. Just pop in there and we'll say hello. You can say hello to us and have fun. All right, Brian.
Yeah, it's more fun than Alison makes it sound. So, so we're gonna head into the.
I thought I made it sound fun.
I don't know. You sounded like you were You were pretty meek.
Meek? Oh no, it's really okay. Do you want?
You were doing that thing that men force women to do when they jog, which is to shrink down and try not to be noticed by those dangerous men. So anyway, we're gonna head into the after show now. Thanks guys for coming and watching us and like going through this, whatever this is. Thank you, Teal Deer, for coming on and hanging out with us, and hopefully you can stick around for the patron show. Maybe we'll look at lesbians and comics, or we'll do more stumping in the after show. I don't know. We'll find out.
No matter what happens, I'm going to end up regretting all of my life decisions that have led me to this moment.
I do that a lot too. Brian calls it meekness. No, I'm just having flashes of my life.
Uh-oh, now we're gonna hear about this for so if you guys enjoyed this content, please give us a like, subscribe if not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, share the video. We appreciate if you guys can do that. I know that sometimes with everything that's going on, it can be really tough on people, in particular financially. So if you can't, for whatever reason, help us out financially, you can do a really, really great amount of, basically give us a really big hand if you shared the video, even with your enemies. Maybe actually make it a point to share it with your enemies, because we always like to see people like rage at us in chat. It actually makes the live show chats, let's say, more lively. And Yeah, and also leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about this, the story or the paper or whatever. And yeah, that's basically it for me. So we'll see you if you're going to be in the after show. We'll see you then. I'm sorry, the patron show. With that said, thanks guys for coming on this episode of the Rantzerker, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.